In my last video, I was talking about how I'm really lacking the one single purpose in my life. Like I don't feel like I have anything that I'm chasing, like obsessing over. And for me, the way that I'm wired, like I really need to be obsessed with something. Like I am an all or nothing type of person. Like if I'm not gonna do it all, if I'm not gonna give 100%, like I don't do it at all. This is with diet, this is with training. Like if I don't create the perfect plan and stick to that plan and give it everything I have, like I'm just not gonna do it at all. And this has really been a big negative. It can be positive, but it's been very negative in my life because when I don't feel that burning desire to chase one thing, I feel lost. And I felt this plenty of times in my life, but I do want to talk to you about the two things that I think can help. Because I've gotten there before. I have had a burning desire a few times in my life, and I've become a fucking animal when I'm in that state of mind. And I think there's two things that help me get there, and there's two things that I'm going to need to get back there if I want any hope to find that purpose and that obsession with anything else in my life. All right, so we got an 80-pound kettlebell. This is the heaviest kettlebell that they have at this gym, but I'm going to hit 2 sets of 15 reps of kettlebell swings, and I know that that's a lot, especially for power work, but I do want to build some capacity. It is a volume phase, and then to progress from here, I'll probably add a band and do some banded kettlebell swings after this, but haven't done these in a while, so we're just gonna do them regular. Ooh. See, I was listening to a motivational video on the way to the gym, and Mr. Beast said something that really resonated with me. Now, think what you want of Mr. Beast, but what he said was, once you make a couple $1 million, why wouldn't you take weekends off? Why wouldn't you stop sacrificing? You've made it. He said, that's why I don't think anybody is going to be able to compete with me in the long run, is because I'm not doing it for money or accolades or any of these type of things. I'm doing it because I truly feel like this is my purpose in life. And for me, that really hit deep because back when I was trying to build my business to the point where I could quit my teaching job. So I was a gym teacher for 5 years. A lot of you know that. And on evenings, weekends, like every day, so I worked my teaching job, and then as soon as the school day was over, I would go do bus duty, get the kiddos on the bus, and then I would go back to my desk because they had a nice computer there in my office, and I would just edit videos, and I would work on new videos, and I would write programming, and I would create my vertical jump programs, and I would it was almost every single weekday that I was there until at least 8 p.m., oftentimes like 9 p.m., but that was my cutoff because I wanted to be in bed by 10 p.m. so that I could wake up at 4 and go to the gym, which, little side note, that was not enough sleep, but I've talked about that before. But I had a purpose. Like my sole desire in life was that I wanted to be my own boss. And that drove me to sacrifice at levels that I haven't been able to tap into ever since. And as soon as I made it and I quit my teaching job and I did run my own business and I was working for myself in my side hustle, which was my business, started earning more than my teaching job, I quit, did my business full time, but I lost the desire. Like I felt like I didn't have that same obsession because I had already got it, which is very similar to like an NBA player who finally makes it to the league, or like a pop star or a rock star who they have one big hit and they get all this fame and success, but then they stop making great songs because they've made it, quote unquote. So yeah, that really hit me. I just need something that I feel pulled to do, and I want to be obsessed about something to the point where I'm willing to sacrifice my entire being to get it. Anytime that you do kettlebell swings, to do them properly and effectively so that they actually build your power and transfer to your vertical jump, you want to remember that your hands are just hanging on to the kettlebell. You are not lifting with your arms at all. Everything is coming from straight hip extension. Your hands are just hanging on and the kettlebell's going along for the ride. But everything is hip extension. The same way that when you do a 2-foot vertical jump, you're here with it, that hip extension, it's the same exact thing. We're building power through hip extension. And, you know, feel a stretch at your hamstrings at the bottom, squeeze your glutes as you come up, but really focus on exploding those hips forward every single rep. I'm pissed because I forgot my weightlifting belt and I wanted to do Nordic curls. Well, I still am gonna do Nordic curls, but I like to use a weightlifting belt, strap it around a bench, put my feet in it and do Nordic curls that way. But I think this will actually work just as well. And for Nordic curls, man, I used to be able to do, I don't know if I quite got to 10 reps on a flat bench, but I could definitely get 5. I think I could get more than 5, all the way down, all the way up, without my hands. But this is the first time that I'm doing Nordics in a long time, so I'm definitely gonna use my hands, but I'm doing 2 sets of 10 reps, and I guess we'll see how this goes. Ooh. Ooh. Man, yeah, we gotta work on these. Nordics are one of those things that if you don't do it at least once a week, twice a week is much better. You lose your progress pretty quickly. But also, Nordics are very eccentric focused. So I really like these in a volume phase or in a building phase or in an eccentric phase. I don't necessarily like Nordics as much when you're trying to peak or back off, just because it is highly eccentric and that can leave your muscles more fatigued, can leave you more sore. But you guys know all that. This is actually a really good Nordic setup though. Like that was almost ideal. Like, so I might not bring my belt. I might just do it here. And if you thought that first set was ugly, we're in for a ride on this one because this is going to be uglier. Oh. Make sure you still get that contraction on the way up. Puppy break? Nope, we gotta keep going. 3. So my thought process was, I'll do Nordics before I do barbell RDLs, because if I do barbell RDLs first, my Nordics will suffer, which is true, but I think my RDLs are gonna suffer a little bit more after my RDLs than my Nordics would. What am I saying? I think my RDLs will suffer more after my Nordics than my Nordics would after my RDLs, is what I'm trying to say. Oh, what's that over there? So going back to the 2 things that I personally believe in my past experience, which some of you are much more experienced than I am. Some of you are not as experienced. Some of you are way wiser, way smarter than I will ever be. Everybody's at a different point in their journey. But in my experience, being that I have had that burning desire, that obsession, that true purpose where I was willing to sacrifice literally everything. I would die for that shit. I've experienced that before, and the 2 things that I believe really play into that is, number 1, you really need to know what you want, and then number 2 is you really need to reverse engineer. You have to understand why you want it and tap into that why every single day, which your why and your purpose are essentially the same thing, so it's kind of like I'm using the word in its definition. You can't really do that, but back when I was teaching, what I wanted, the only thing that I wanted in my life, the number 1 thing that I was willing to sacrifice everything for, was just being my own boss, building my own business, doing whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And I could not stand the fact that no matter how hard I worked, I got paid the same amount every year. I was on a salary. No matter if I go above and beyond, if I'm the best teacher in the school, this is what you get paid. And there were other teachers who weren't doing shit. They were fucking noodle heads that got paid way more than me. And I understand you got to put your time in, but that killed me to the point where it drove me to work and sacrifice every weekend, every weekday night, evenings, weekends, like holidays. Like I worked as hard as I could for that shit. And that drove me. But right now, I think personally, I am missing the what I want. Like I have all of these reasons to do something great. Like I want to, number one, for my son. Like I have a 7-month-old son, and that is really pushing me to be better. That's the reason why I'm staying consistent with these Answers for Athletes videos. That's the reason why I'm training now. Like I didn't want to be a fat fuck for the rest of my life. And it's like, I don't want to just tell him what to do. I want to show him what to do through my actions. And that trickles down into everything from me training to the way that I treat his mother, to the way that I treat people, to how hard I work. Like it trickles down into everything. So like I have my why, but I just don't know like what I want to pursue. Like I've achieved some success on YouTube. Like, of course I want to make it bigger, but I need one single thing to like really shoot for. And then, like, it's hard to know why you want something, but when you don't know what you want. So anyways, I'm yapping and I need to do my set. And if you guys have any advice for me, please, in the comments section. I am an open book. I'm gonna hit 225 today for 2 sets of 10. So if you haven't noticed by now, my exercise selection is a little bit different. The reps are a little bit different. Normally I do, 5 sets of 3 of RDLs or 4 sets of 5 of RDLs. So today I'm doing 2 sets of 10, did 2 sets of 10 Nordics. I'm doing 2 sets of 10 reverse hypers. I will explain this switch in my programming in tomorrow's video because I really want to, I was gonna do it in today's video, but I really wanna sit down and pull it up on the computer and show you guys my thought process behind changing my workout split, because I'm going to be doing 4 days of training lower body instead of 3 days. I laid out the 3 days and it was just too much volume for one single session. I would have been in the gym for too long of a time period each workout. But yeah, we'll talk about that in tomorrow's video. I'll break down everything that is changing within my workout split. Probably could have went a little bit heavier than 225, but I haven't done high volume in a while, so I'm gonna stick here. Let me tell you guys a funny story that plays into all of this. So when I was in high school, my high school basketball coach was also my health teacher. And he was still to this day, one of my biggest role models that I've ever had in my life. And I remember one day he's teaching a lesson in class and he said, no one, and I mean no one, in this class is going to become a professional athlete. And take it for what you will, maybe that's some fucked up advice, but I was sitting in class and I remember just thinking like, hello, Mr. Malinsky, I'm right here. Like, of course I'm going to the NBA. I think I was in like the 10th grade, but somewhat delusional, absolutely. But what I think he understood was like, so we actually played against some NBA players. So we played against DeJuan Blair, DJ Kennedy played high D1, Dre Kane played for Iowa State. Like we had some really good players in our conference. And me and the rest of the kids in the class and whoever else was on the team who was in that class, like we were nowhere close to these guys who are actually going to make it in basketball. And my whole point of this is that finally when I realized like, oh wow, like I'm not going to the NBA. Like my sole purpose in life was I want to make the NBA. Once I finally realized like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen, I needed something else to like obsess over. So I was like, what can I compete in? And I started obsessing over bodybuilding. That's when I did a few bodybuilding shows and I actually stopped bodybuilding because I wasn't willing to take steroids. Like, I understood that to be the best bodybuilder in the world, because why bodybuild? Why compete in bodybuilding shows if you're not gonna try to be the best? That was like, I've just had this all or nothing attitude my entire life. So to be the best for my physique and my genetics, I have to take steroids. And I was not willing to take steroids, was not willing to take PEDs, performance enhancing drugs. And I actually was at the bar one time, and this big ass bodybuilder sat right down next to me after I had won the first place in this competition that I did. He looked at me, he said, "You have the perfect physique for steroids." I'm not kidding. He said, I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? So anyways, long story short, after bodybuilding, it was, what do I want to do? And that's when I got into teaching, and my sole purpose became, well, I want to run my own business and build this business that I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. And now that I did that, still 3-4 years later, like at 30 years old, I quit my job and I did this. I'm now 33, so I'm almost 34. So almost 4 years later, I still have yet to fill that gap of like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, I need one thing to obsess over for me to really feel that purpose in life. So man, I'm doing a ton of yapping today. I apologize, but hopefully this is helping somebody out there. Anyways, we got 2 sets of 20 reps with reverse hypers, and I did put the 25s on there because I'm sick of being a bitch, to say the least. And the last time I did 20 reps was with 10s, and then I did, I think, 10 or 12 reps with 25. So I'm just going to attempt to hit 20s with 25. So let's get it. Man, that wasn't that bad, but it was also brutal at the same time. All right, so as you guys just saw, I did some machine hip thrusts. I did some seated hamstring curls. Both of those were 2 sets of 10 reps each. So everything for my post chain today is 2 sets of 10. These calf raises, however, are 3 sets of 20 reps. And one mistake that I did make today is I wasn't paying attention to my workout, and I actually did the reverse hypers before I did the hip thrusts and the hamstring curls. And they didn't really interfere with the hamstring curls, but they definitely interfered with the hip thrusts. My lower back was just crushed from the reverse hypers, and I should have, like I have this program to hit the reverse hypers last, but I just wasn't paying attention, and I did the reverse hypers before that, and it definitely interfered. So make sure that, as I always say, you do the most fatiguing things last, and that is why. The interference effect. I do really enjoy these safety bar calf raises. It's just a lot of setup. Like, you gotta put the safety bars up, then you gotta get the actual safety bar, then you gotta put the weights on, then you gotta get the platform, then you gotta put something behind the platform, make sure it doesn't slide on you. What am I, like, bro, cry me a river. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. And remember, in tomorrow's video, I am going to sit down at the computer. I will take you guys through my thought process and the reasoning behind why I switched up my workout split, what I switched it to, and what my plan is for the rest of this volume phase until about mid-March. And then the last 2 weeks in March, I am going to back off. I'm gonna taper or back off. I'll decide at that point. But I'm going to try to get a dunk, jump my highest at that point. But one last piece of advice that I would like to give all of you is, and you know, unsolicited advice is the worst advice, but if you're watching my channel, I'm guessing that you care about my advice somewhat. But there's a certain feeling that you get when you're all the way dialed in. Like when you're really locked in, like 100%, like, and you can't just get this after a couple days of doing the right thing, after a couple days of eating healthy or working out. Like this takes weeks, it takes months of like being dialed in. And there's a certain feeling that you get when you start to see progress. Tony Robbins says that progress equals happiness, but you can't feel motivated and inspired and driven and, you know, motivate, like all those things, like they fluctuate, they ebb and flow. There's ups and downs to motivation. You're not always gonna feel motivated. That's when discipline comes in. But motivation and drive and that pull, that desire, that burning obsession really comes after weeks and months of really being locked in. Like you can't, it's reserved for those people who are locked in for days and days and days and days and days. You can't have that. That's why it's so hard to get started, because once you have the momentum and you've been doing the right thing day after day after day, you start to get that ball rolling and then you feel inspired. Now you don't want to stop. But at the beginning, when you're not really locked in, you can't dabble. Like drive and obsession, it's not for the dabblers. It's reserved for those people who are seriously locked in. So one thing that you can do is have that discipline and actually get to that point even though you don't feel motivated. So you start to actually eat right and work out and you stay on your habits that you want to even though you don't feel like it. And then there's a point where, you know, it turns a little bit. You flip the switch and then it becomes from, it's not discipline anymore. You're not forcing yourself anymore. Now you're actually pulled to do it. So you're pushing it first to get that ball rolling, but then you start to become pulled. Then you start to build that fire. Then you get obsessed. So right now for me, I need to get all the way locked in so that I can get to that point where I feel obsessed. And that may cause me to find what I want in my life. Anyways, as I said, all advice that you guys have for me is completely welcome down below in the comment section. I know I did a lot of yapping in this video, but that's what these videos are for, and this is what this second channel is all about. So I love you all, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Peace.